Welcome, welcome. We are going to talk jackets. And you know, spring jackets in particular, because I don't think there's anything better than spring jackets. You know, we were talking, and I think jackets are transformative. I think that's really such an applicable word. And transformative means causing a radically and typically positive change in outlook, character, any of those things. But think about that, a radical and typically positive change. And that's really what jackets do for us. They do that for me, and I've always wondered, why do I love jackets? And that's really the reason why, is because, and many of designer has said, go anywhere in your pajamas, just throw a jacket on over your pajamas. It doesn't matter what's underneath, it's the jacket that people really notice. And so I want to help you make jackets fun. I want to help you see the vision that jackets can have. Our pattern of the month is a jacket because it's just perfect for this time of year. Armani's Unlined jacket. And I want to go over all the issues that you have that might make you nervous about making them, and recognize that you can do this, and you can make a transformative jacket for yourself. So we're going to start with Armani's jacket. This pattern, 1516, was Armani. I had purchased this jacket many years ago, probably on the discount rack, because I know I wouldn't pay full price. And I just wore it. And finally one day somebody said to me, why don't you do a pattern out of that? Because I had it on somewhere. It wasn't sewing, but there was some of my friends who sewed were there and said, you know, why don't you make a jacket out of that? And I don't know why I hadn't thought of that before, but I did. It's unlined. It can be a woven, it can be a stretch woven, or I even did a knit out of it tonight. And I'm going to walk you through the different fabrics and how you can kind of decide what you want to do and where you want to do. And you all know the first step is fitting. But before we do that, I want to show you a couple pictures, because keep in mind that this original was an Armani. This was a Giorgio Armani. So I went back to Giorgio Armani. I've said to you many times, designers will use similar patterns over and over and over. And so I want to show you this first picture, and I want you to look at that price, because the price, we're going to talk prices tonight a little bit, but you can see that this is our jacket. You notice the round collars. This is exactly the same jacket. The only difference is it's a little double-breasted right there at the waist, and then it cuts open like our 1500 does. That's all styling, and that's easy to do. But that price is shocking. Is that a fair word? $1,800 for a jacket. That's just shocking. It's not really a matter of whether you can afford it or not. It's what are you going to spend your money on, and is that the best use of your dollars? I think that's how I look at it. So we want to think about what our time is worth also, because tonight I made 3 jackets. I made one that took 2 hours, one that took 3 hours, and the one that took 6 hours. So even if I take the one that took 6 hours and divide it into the 1,800, that means I have to make $300 an hour to go buy that jacket as opposed to sew it. If I did the one that for 200, I'd have to make 900. You get my point. So for all of us, that answer is different. How much we make per hour versus how much we want to spend behind the sewing machine. And that's not even counting the enjoyment factor. That's just really talking about sheer dollars for dollars. But I want you to remember that $1,800 as we go through this. So the next photo we're going to look at is a jacket also. I thought this was beautiful. Anytime you put a zipper in a jacket, you're only bringing center fronts together. So in this particular jacket that we're doing tonight, you have a buttonhole extension. So on your pattern, if you look at the pattern, you can see center front. And beyond center front, you have what's called a buttonhole extension, and of course a seam allowance. That allows the jacket to overlap, as this does here, to close. But if you're only going to use zipper to zipper, then you take away all of that. You only need center front plus a seam allowance. So you could put a little zipper right up here in the front, just a short little zipper, and your jacket would zip up as opposed to overlap and button. Fun thing to do, really simple to do, and I thought I showed you that picture. Again, that is Armani, and Armani's kind of been famous for this little zip-up jacket look, and he's done it quite a few times. Okay, so let's talk about where we start. You're home, you've got the pattern. Where do you start? And I know you all know this answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Where do you start? The muslin. We have muslin for you if you need it. The muslin is $48.71. It's tough, it's woven, it's light, so you can get a really good indication. There's only 4 pieces that you're using. Using your front, your side front, your back, and your side back. Okay, you don't ever want to put on a jacket that calls for a shoulder pad, which this one does, without putting a shoulder pad on. Because the first thing you do is go, oh, look at all this. And you don't want to do that. Okay, so you are going to you're going to measure some jackets you wear. And if you have no jacket in your closet, you are going to go to a store of your choice, Target, Walmart, I don't care what store you go to, and you're going to try on jackets and measure the jacket. Measure the jacket under the arm, fullest part of the bust. Find one you like. Don't worry about the shoulders. Don't worry about any of it. Just find the jacket that you like around the bust. And you're going to measure that. And then you're going to choose that size. The size is equal to circumference. Once you've done that, within every circumference in our patterns, you have an option of a B cup, a C cup, or a D cup. That will correspond to your bra cup size. It's not literally the same, but it works the same, and it will give you the information you need to make up the cup sizing that you need. Okay? That saves you a lot of work if you just follow those little steps. The goal tonight, you guys, is as we go through the questions and the fitting, that you really understand and feel like, hey, I can do this. I can do this. This is a walk in the park. I can do this. Jackets, for me, not only are they transformative, they are the most money-saving garment you can make. You know, there's many women who say, oh, I make everything I wear, even my underwear. I would not waste my time making my underwear. I've made underwear, don't get me wrong. It's fast, it's easy, and I can see why people make it. But dollar for dollar, make your jackets over your underwear, okay? Just a tip coming from me. But you all know you're free to do whatever you want. All right, so we're going to make jackets because we're going to save a lot of money and because they are transformative. Love that word. All right, so we're going to follow L, C, and D, and we're going to also keep in mind that this jacket, the back is the same as all the other jackets. Not all the other jackets, but most of the other jackets, a princess seam. So if you have the other jackets, or you have fit the other jackets, keep the back that you've already done. All you want to do is check the neckline, and you want to check the side seams. And whatever the side seam is, however much you lengthen the front, the side, lengthen it all the same, all the way around. Because as I change the jacket, I'll change this length of the style according to what the original jacket is. Okay? Okay. So we're going to do L, C, and D. Now I have said this many times, but we're going to say it again because sometimes we hear it in a little different way, just on a little different day. L, length, is not something you have to worry about in this jacket. From shoulder to bust, I have a 3-inch error factor, and I am sober when I make these patterns, so I have not messed up the bust point. You do not need to change the bust point where it is on a silhouette pattern. I've never changed one. In all the years and all the women I fit, I've never changed one. Okay? And I can hear you, you'll say, yeah, but I need, no, you don't need to change the bust point, okay? So we're going to skip over L. I had a fitting class last week in Dallas, and I know this lady will not mind me using her as an example because I asked her and she said, okay. She brought in a size that she had made, and we narrowed the shoulder. We took it, we made a few alterations, and I said to her, why did you choose this size? And she said, I don't know. And the reason she ended up choosing that size is she had gained weight and she felt uncomfortable, so she just went to a size that she felt was big enough. It was way too big. It was way too big, 4 inches too big, you guys. And so I said to her, I can drape this. I can make this fit you, but it's too much work. So if you want to remake it, come back in Saturday. You know, we're in the stores on Saturday. So she came in last Saturday and we redraped it. A couple little changes. That's it. So if you feel like you're overhauling this thing, it's probably the wrong size. Just a suggestion to yourself. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's probably just too big. You've chosen the wrong size. And so I counted how long this took me, and it took me 30 minutes to cut out these 4 pieces and sew them up. And that to me is if you've never done one of our jackets, it's a good investment as far as your end fabric goes. And it saves you actually a lot of time if you've got the fit down and you know that the fit is okay. So L, you're going to check off. C, you're going to check off. There's nothing wrong in going from 1C at the top to 1C at the bottom, because you can be different circumferences, but you choose for the bust and you keep the shoulders the same. Okay? There's a princess seam here, easy to narrow the shoulder if you need to. PoM, you can do it right there in the seam. So it's a very easy jacket to fit. Let's talk about depth. If you notice in this one that I have on, or this one that she has on, fits pretty good. These backs are beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. The best thing about a female is the shape of her back. So you don't want to hide it. You don't want to put the center back on a fold. You want to show it off, because I don't care what your size is. You have this beautiful back. We have it. We all have it. And I have fit many, many women, many sizes, and that back is still beautiful. So don't camouflage or give up the back. Okay? Sometimes you have a little sway back in here. This one doesn't, but you guys, I think you know how to fix that. Fix it above the waist, taper to nothing at the side seam, and that will fix it. This particular sample here, you notice there's a little gapping as it goes over the bust. I would suggest that you make your jacket for either it being closed or open. Closed, your fit is going to have to be more exact. Open, it's going to be, it doesn't have to be as exact. But either it doesn't, if you never wear your jackets closed, don't fit them closed. If you always wear them open, let them hang open and then fit them from there. Okay, but if you notice this has got a little gap right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pinch and take it out. And this is a depth issue because it's an uneven amount of change. And if you notice, it's really going to taper to nothing right here at the seam. So that's all I have to put a pin to, just stop it right there at the seam. I want to stop it somewhere, either at this seam or at the next seam, because I want the pattern to lay flat. And so I can't stop it. I can't stop it in the middle of the tissue, but if you notice, it's not a problem here. It really does stop right at this point. But often I'll say you really have to listen to the cloth. The cloth is going to tell you what to do. And if you erase everything that's in your head and literally follow the cloth, you can see that there's a little gap right here that needs to be fixed. You'll need to fix that in the adjoining pieces. That means the collar as well. So you're going to take a little tuck in that collar piece and taper it to nothing also, and they will both follow beautifully. And look at the difference in how it looks. Okay, easy enough. Not everyone will need this, but a muslin, you cannot fix this after the fabric has been cut. Depth is something that needs to be fixed in the angles of the cloth and the pattern. So it's really critical that when we do a muslin, we do depth fixes. Okay, L, C, and D. If you need a rounded back, perfect thing to do your rounded back. You want your collar to come up. Sway back, I think you all know how to do that. There's just very little changes. When you've got all these beautiful seams to work with, you're just not going to have a hard time. I didn't do a sleeve because I already had a sleeve. I already had a sleeve that we've done on many other jackets, and so my sleeve, I just used the same sleeve that I've used before. Okay, so this is question time. I want you to ask those questions. I don't care how silly-willy they are. I want you to feel comfortable that you can do this and that you can make this jacket. Now, one of the reasons I did this jacket is because as you go through the jacket, when you make it, you realize it is so much simpler than many jackets out there. The way it's constructed, the way the collar is put on, it's just easy. And so I really decided to offer up a jacket that was very simple like this, was a positive thing to do. And so that's really why the jacket came about. It looked great, it's a great styling, very simple to sew as well. Notice the shoulder seam, this one fits really well, but again, don't try that jacket on without your shoulder pads in place. Okay? Any questions? Let's talk fit for a little bit. Okay? All right. We love fit, don't we? You will look your thinnest. You will look your best. You will look taller. All you gotta do is fit those jackets. That's a lot easier than exercising and not eating. No, I'm kidding. How do you adjust the pattern for no shoulder pads? I am not telling you, okay? I am not helping you take away those shoulder pads. It's not gonna happen. It's not a jacket if you take away the shoulder pads. Actually, I did take away the shoulder pads. I did take it away in this one over here, so I'm really kidding. All right, so on your pattern, you probably know the answer to this. But, so first off, if you're taking away the shoulder pads, you kind of have to ask yourself a couple more questions. Are you know, number one, why are you taking away the shoulder pads? You don't need to tell me, but you just need to ask yourself these questions. Why are you taking away the shoulder pads? So let's just say you don't like them. Then what are you going to do with the sleeve? Are you going to use a two-piece sleeve? Is it a two-piece jacket sleeve? Is it a two-piece blouse sleeve? Do you understand the differences? So instead of just saying, how do you turn on the car? I'm going to say to you, where do you want to go? And that way we can have a more cohesive conversation about why you want to turn the car on, because now I know where you want to go. If that gives you a little more bearing. So I re-angle the shoulder seam to take away the shoulder pad. And because it's an inch shoulder pad, it would be an inch in the front and an inch in the back. And when I do that, I have two options. I can lower the armhole and duplicate what is there, or I can simply lower the cap height to make a smaller armhole. Okay? And we have done that many, many places. Free, we've done it in videos, we've done it on fitting yourself by yourself, we've done it on achieving great fit. The armhole and the sleeve, or what's up your sleeve, is one that's all about armholes and sleeves. We've done that many places. Okay? Okay. Are your jackets drafted for 1 inch or 1/2 inch shoulder pads? So on the back of the pattern, it will say the shoulder pad size. So anytime you're curious, just click on the back and you can see whatever it's drafted for on the back. If we say 1 inch, it's drafted for a 1 inch shoulder pad. Okay? May we see the back of the jacket you have on? Yes. Sorry, what's the pattern number? This is March PoM. This is pattern number 1516. It's called Armani's Unlined Jacket, and that was Giorgio Armani Unlined Jacket. I think we already had Giorgio something else, so I didn't put the Giorgio on there. Did you say to use the same cup size as our bra? Yes, I did. That's a guide. If you're in the wrong cup size, you'll have gapping in the armholes, or you'll have diagonal lines underneath that you can just literally pinch a dart. And then you'll know you're in the wrong cup size, and then go. The muslin will tell you. You have to start somewhere, and some of you, I think, have said to me over and over, I just don't know where to start. Like, I don't know where to start. So sometimes starting is kind of the hardest part. If we can just get you started, then from there, you'd be amazed how well you do. You're just kind of getting started sometimes. And for myself, I feel the same way. Is the fit of this jacket about the same as 1955, which is jacket 148? It is the same. It's the same body, it's the same back, it's the same side panel, it's a different front, it's the same sleeve. The goal was that when you made one jacket, you could make 15 more, because jackets are transformative, remember? All right, love that word. If you are narrow or hollow in the upper chest area, do you take in at the front? Don't anticipate all these names. Gosh, it's like saying, if I'm dumb and stupid, should I start it at the beginning or at the end? Don't do that to yourself. You know, quit labeling all these things onto yourself. Just make up a pattern and just see if there's problems. I don't think we're hollow-chested. I don't think those things. I think the patterns for many years were made poorly, and we just blamed ourselves because they were poorly done. Okay? How do you transfer the adjustment from the muslin to the pattern piece? Don't change it. Just make this your pattern piece. Changing it is a lot more work. Just pin it, sew it, put it back on, make sure it's right. And then I basted this. Just take apart the basting, lay the pattern flat, and that's it. That's it. Okay? That'll save you a whole bunch of time. I've noticed a lengthened hairline at the bust in the Princess Seam patterns from Silhouette Patterns. Why is it there if it's not needed? That's a really good question. Because over 25 years, I have caved to you all in some regards. Because you kind of have freaked out because there's not a lengthen or shorten line above the bust point. So we put it there. You don't need it, but we put it there just to make you feel happy and safe and secure because you don't need it. So that's a really good question. I probably should take them away, but they're built into our base right now, and so I'm going to leave them. It's like notches, too. You guys, man, I remember when we first did patterns, you were like, where are the notches? You don't even know what notches mean. You don't know what they're for. You just wanted them, you know? And so I caved, and I put some on there, but we don't have a lot because they're overused, and they're needed in some places. Don't get me wrong, they are. But we overuse them a little bit too much. I want you to understand the pattern a little bit more rather than just blindly kind of going along. But maybe I'm asking too much. I'll hush up right now before I get myself in a bad spot. I adjust my blouse for forward shoulders. Would that be necessary in a jacket? No, most likely not. Because a shoulder pad, a jacket has a greater error factor as to where that shoulder seam feels comfortable on you. So blouses are much closer to the body, and the fit has to be more exact than what a jacket does. A jacket has more room for error. I'm going to call it. It's probably not the best word to use, but don't do that until you make that muslin and see that you need it. Okay, good question though. If you choose a larger cup size, what will be the signs of an ill fit? There won't be any. You know, this is a misconception that is so driven into y'all's head, I don't know how to get it out. But if I'm going to err on the side of caution, if I'm sewing for someone and I'm making up a muslin and they tell me they're a C cup, I'll make that D cup in a heartbeat because there's no negative from doing it. You all just think that there is, and there's negative from making too small a cup size. So I'll always have a tendency to overcompensate. It's kind of like the best comparison I can give you is kind of like a sway back. If you're doing a sway back, and if you took maybe a little bit more than you needed, it wouldn't be a bad thing. If you go too extreme, obviously it'll hike up its center back. But to take a little more and just tighten up those angles a little bit, it wouldn't be a big deal. So the cup sizing is the same, although to many of you you're just not going to like that answer. With a shoulder pad, does the shoulder angle adjustment show up the same way as a blouse? Boy, I'm not sure I understand that question. With a shoulder pad, does the shoulder angle adjustment show up? You're going to have to rephrase that for me. I'm so sorry. I just don't get what you're wanting to know. Can you please show us the inside of the finished jacket? Yeah, we'll get there. Hang on. We're just doing fitting yet, and then we'll go to sewing here in just a little bit, but I promise we'll get inside. Would this pattern work with a faux leather? Yes. Do you use interfacing on the faux leather? Depends on the faux leather. I would say typically no, but the faux leather is a really loose term for, it's like saying, would you use interfacing on silk? Faux leather goes from every weight. It's just too broad for me to really answer that correctly. Can you share other tips for sewing faux leather? I don't think there's any tips. Get your Teflon foot. I sew faux leather just like I do any other fabric. But again, it's the quality of the faux leather. Faux leather can be $2 a yard, or it can be, really beautiful quality stuff. So that's too hard a question for just generic. Sorry about that, you guys. What typically are length issues for someone 5'10" with a long waist? Just add at the bottom. All you have to do is add at the bottom. Remember the back? This back has I'm going to call it an error factor, but it's a waist. It's called a free. There's a term for it. I can't remember it right now. But anyway, it just means that the waist can actually be quite a distance. I put this jacket on women who are 5 feet and women who are 6 feet, and the waist is just fine. The only place that the women notice it is at the bottom where they need to take off. So because it's shaped beautifully. Most never have had to change that. But just add to the bottom. And sometimes, like even this, when I was talking about that one particular lady doing this jacket, she wanted the jacket longer, and everybody else in the class said, no, that's too long. So some of us in our brain, when we wear a jacket, we just want to cover ourselves. We just want to cover up. And because we want to cover up, we have a tendency to make our garments out of proportion to our bodies, and they really get to be where they're too long. So just be aware of that and be careful. Okay? A lot of times when I show you jackets, I try to show you photos of jackets on women so you can measure those little pictures and see this is them, this is me, and this is how the length I should make the jacket. Okay? Okay, are we okay for questions? Okay, can you do this? Yes. Muslin made. Now that the muslin is made, it is time to go have some fun. So the first jacket I'm going to suggest you make is no changes, nothing, easy fabric. It's what I've got on. And this is fabric 5259. 5259. It's 100% cotton. It's kind of a really light peach. The reason I use this fabric is I really wanted a base jacket for spring that could go with a zillion colors. And a white would work, but a white is white, and I had a white, and I wanted another color. I wanted like peach, exactly what this was. So I made it with no changes, exactly like it is, and I love it. Just absolutely love it. So I could put it with any color that you can see. I'm mixing it here with like pinks. I could do it with blues. I could do it with any color because that peach is a color that just molds. It's like a neutral. So it works, but it's kind of a little bit nicer than a neutral because it blends with so many different colors. So that's what I was looking for, and that's what I did. No changes, no adjustments. Well, I mean, whatever changes I made on my muslin, but what I'm saying to you is I didn't make any pattern adjustments. So when we talk about this fabric, and we talk about this pattern is meant or built for, designed, what we call a feminine fabric. We have feminine fabrics and we have masculine fabrics. So this pattern is feminine because you notice there's curves around the collar, there's curves around the bottom of the jacket. Whole thing is feminine. So when I couple it with a feminine fabric, which this jacquard is, you see in Scribe there's all kinds of little florals, and you know, it's just tone on tone, but when you really look close at the fabric, it's really beautiful. So I didn't have to make any adjustments with the pattern. I didn't have to correct any of the curves or any of that. Then when I went to make jacket number 2, I wanted to make it, this is fabric number 5244, and I wanted to make it out of a masculine fabric. And so now what I wanted to do is I wanted to square up the lapels, because if I had curved lapels and curved bottoms, you can see it interrupts the lines of the pattern of the check, or you know, plaid, whatever it is. And so I'm going to show you a couple changes that I did. But before we do that, I want to show you, this is a picture of a jacket that is from one of our customers. I love this jacket because here what she did is she took a feminine fabric and she didn't have to change the lapels. Of course, she could have made the whole thing like it is, but I love the contrast. Love the contrast of the collar and love how great it looks. And of course, it pairs well with so many different things as well. And the only thing that she did was she changed out. Typically when this is done, the welts will also be a contrast. Just FYI, not all the time. You're sewing, you can do whatever you want. But typically, those welts will match that contrast. And then, you know, but I've also seen it this way with sleeves in a knit body where the sleeves are knit and the body is woven. So many fun things you guys can do once you start looking at jackets. But I wanted to show you this and say yay, because this is beautiful. It's really beautiful. And this is a fabric, I don't even know if we still have this fabric. I probably should have told you the fabric number, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm sorry, you guys. But it's really pretty, so thanks for sending that. Okay, now I want you to look at the next one, because what I want to show you is the changes that I made when I went from a feminine fabric to a masculine fabric. And all I did, if you notice, and I've got pictures on here, is this is curved out a little bit. It's very gentle, but it's very pretty on the lapel. I just straightened it. And I did the same thing with the collar. And then I did the same thing down here with the bottom. So anything that was curved, I squared it up. That's it. And we're going to talk about this one for a little bit, because when we talk about hours, the jacket I have on took me about 3 hours. keep in mind, I think sometimes that lining a jacket is faster than unlined jacket. And the reason being said, for many of you, you think of as an unlined jacket is easier, and I think it is in some regards, but keep in mind that all of your seams have to be finished. So when you're doing that jacket on the inside, everything has to be finished on the inside, and so, you know, that takes a little bit of time to do that. So when you start making this jacket, you're going to serge around every single piece. You don't have to serge. You can use seam binding. You can use whatever you want to finish it with, but it has to go around each piece. And that, gosh, that takes a good 30 minutes just to kind of finish all those edges. I have to change the shoulder angle on a blouse. Do I do the same on a jacket? So every pattern is not going to be the same. If you change your shoulder angle on one of our blouses, probably you'll have to change it on a jacket, yes. But randomly across the board, if you just change angles on a blouse pattern, it doesn't mean you have to change it on this, because we know that a shoulder angle is not standardized on every pattern out there. Is that a fair statement? Okay. So let's kind of take a look at this for a little bit. I want to dive inside. This has got welt pockets. And so when we talk about doing a jacket, I really want you to see that you can really do a really simple jacket over something that takes, they're all simple, just some will take more time. I always compare them to jigsaw puzzles. One's 50, one's 100, and one's maybe 500. We don't have any thousands here. They're not that hard. And we certainly don't have any 4,000s. Only my son does 4,000 piece jigsaw puzzles. Okay, so I'm going to put this one here, and I'm going to put this one here, because what I did is this one, which is that ribbing. This is fabric number 5257. This is the same thing. I lengthened it because I wanted it a little bit more of a cardigan style. And then I left out the shoulder pad and used the sweater set for the sleeve. I used a knit sleeve. We just have to start it again. If you can hear me, we're going to start the stream again because we have frozen.